Hello, my name is Monica Brown and I teach 8th grade U.S. History and Social Studies at Key Middle School. Today I'm going to take you through a lesson that looks at the causes of the American Revolution. More specifically, we are going to look at the ESP causes of the American Revolution. Remember that ESP stands for economic, social, and political. Today, we are specifically going to look at the economic causes of the American Revolution. But before we get started, there are a couple of things you will need for today's lesson. You will need to have a pen or pencil, and you will need to have paper. And if you have a journal that you like to write in, you most certainly can use your journal to write in today. So let's look at this term mercantilism. But before we actually define it, let's see if we can connect it to a real day idea. But first, let me go over your learning targets. Your learning target today is that you will be able to analyze the cause of the American Revolution, including the Proclamation of 1763, the Intolerable Acts, the Stamp Act, mercantilism, lack of representation in Parliament, and the British economic policies following the French and Indian War. You are also going to identify bias and points of view created by historical context surrounding an event. Okay, so now let's connect this idea of mercantilism to the real world. Have you ever been to the movies? You've gone into the movie theater. There's a movie you've been waiting to see. And the only thing that you can think about is that you just can't wait to get your perfect seat and sit back with a big drink and a big tub of popcorn. But you only have so much money on you. Did you even think that the movie popcorn and the movie soda that you're going to buy might be 2 or 3 times as much as it would if you were to go to a regular store? Have you thought about how much it's going to be and how much it would cost at that convenience store across the street? And why does it cost more at the movie theater? Here's another question. Is it even fair that theaters overprice these items? Is there a way that people can avoid not paying these prices? Well, sometimes we pay a little more for convenience. And that's the whole thing with going to the movies. We know we're going to go to the movies. We know we're going to pay a little bit more for that entire experience, right? But you may not like that you're going to have to pay more, but the movie theater knows you're not going to bring food from the outside. They also know that why not take advantage of this and make a little bit extra? So as we talk about mercantilism today, I want you to think about this movie theater idea. Mercantilism really is, it's an economic theory that can strengthen a nation's economy through tariffs. Tariffs are taxes on imported goods. I think we've talked about that in a previous lesson. And restrictions on trade. Okay, so what does that mean? If you think about the movie theater idea, well, they're going to put an extra price on that popcorn, and they're going to put an extra price on that soda that you buy. But you can't go anywhere else to buy it. You have to buy it right there. You can't bring food in from the outside. It's the policy. You're going to buy whatever it is that you want right there. It's a lot like when we start talking about mercantilism, the trade between the United States and between Europe. They were not allowed to trade with anybody else. And so don't you think they took advantage of that? They added as much tax as they could. Well, this situation is similar to that economic policy called mercantilism. It's an economic theory that can strengthen a nation's economy through tariffs, taxes, or imported goods, or it can put restrictions on trade. This is what I want you to remember. There was strict control over trade, and that option was to trade with Europe. They were not allowed to trade with anybody else. Don't you think this may have created a problem with trade? Well, let's look a little bit deeper into this. Your guiding question today is, How do the events leading to the American Revolution represent the growing discontent of American colonists? Let's read that again. How do the events leading to the American Revolution represent the growing discontent of the American colonists? That's something to think about. Let's look a little bit more. So, what exactly is mercantilism? What we need to know is how mercantilism strengthened the economy of England, or we call it the mother country, and this impacted the 13 colonies. We will also look at the issues surrounding mercantilism and determine how mercantilism helped cause the American Revolution. Sometimes the best way to understand a concept is to use a visual representation of it. So we are going to use optics for this lesson. Do you remember what optics stands for? If you don't, that's okay. We're going to go through it real quick. Optics stands for objects, people, time and time period, inference, and conclusion. So when we're looking at a picture, you're going to look for the objects that are in the picture. You should be able to find at least 3 objects that you see. And then we'll look at the people. Let's take a look at what the people represent in the picture. And then we want to look at the title and the time period that's happening, and then an inference. So you may not know exactly what's going on, but in inference, you can say, because I see, I can infer. So because you see certain things, you can kind of come to an inference, or you can guess what's going on. And then our conclusion. You'll come to a complete conclusion based on the objects, the people, the title and time period, and the inference. That'll help you come to your conclusion. So let's take a look at this picture here. All right, so there seems to be 4 people in this picture. I see 3 women, and they all have the word colony written on their clothing. And then there looks like there is a woman that's sitting at the table. Notice that her sash on her dress says Mother Country. And the women that are carrying looks like certain items. So one has a platter that looks like it says gold and silver. The other one looks like she has something that says foodstuffs. And the last woman looks like she has raw materials. Okay. It looks like the woman who represents the mother country is very happy. She just seems like she's kind of beyond herself. And it looks like maybe her table is full of items to eat. So she looks like she's sitting pretty well. What about the ladies that are holding the platters? Do they look happy? Or are they happy to present these platters to her? Take a moment to think about what it is that you see in this picture and what it is that the message is. Also pay attention to the title. It says the Mercantilist Argument for Colonial Expansion. Take a moment to think about that, and let's figure out what's going on here. All right, so let's look at this picture again, and I have broken it down in a couple of parts. Let's look at the objects, and then let's look at the people. Tell me 2 objects that you see in the cartoon, and then look at one object you think that no one else will see. Then I want you to look at the people, and I want you to use describing words. The woman that is sitting down is, okay, see if you can fill in that blank. And the women standing up are, right? So I'll give you a moment to figure out what the objects are and what the people are. Let's look at this section here. Let's look at the title and let's look at the inference. The title we know says the Mercantilist Argument for Colonial Expansion. Now let's look at the inference. Because I see, I can infer the mother country likes mercantilism because, All right, so what is it that you see? What is it that you see? You see that there's three ladies there that have three platters, and it looks like they're titled gold and silver, food, raw materials. Okay, because I see the three women holding platters of materials, I can infer the mother country likes mercantilism because it gives England everything that they want. I mean, that's one possibility. Perhaps you've come up with another one. Let's take it a step further. Based on this cartoon, did most colonists like mercantilism? Why or why not? So this is what I came up with. They probably did not like it because they were serving England. Okay, so if you were a colonist, you probably didn't like this. It didn't serve your interests. Okay, everything that you did served the mother country. It served England's to their benefit. They also probably didn't like it because they felt like they were being treated unfairly and treated less than equals. Okay, so look at this picture. Who is the royalty? The mother country. You see the woman that is sitting at the table. Well, she's not on an equal level with the women that are serving her. So you probably notice that there are different roles as well that this picture points out. And then lastly, England was getting rich off of the colonies. Look at the picture again. England was getting a lot of money. Listen, the colonies couldn't trade with anybody else. They could only trade with England. So who does that benefit the most? Does it benefit the 13 colonies or does it benefit the mother country, which was England? Probably England. Okay, so now that we've looked at our picture, let's look at the concept of mercantilism and take a closer look at how the colonies were impacted by the economic policy. We're going to look at how the colonists and the British reacted to the economic policy. And remember, mercantilism included several laws that restricted trade. We're going to complete the first two rows of this graphic organizer. And then I'm going to want you to complete the rest of the graphic organizer. On the graphic organizer, there is a word bank at the bottom, and you will have to use the words that are provided to fill in the blanks. We'll do the first two together, and then I want you to complete it by yourself. Remember, as we go through this graphic organizer and we're looking at these different scenarios, I want you to remember about the movie theater example. Remember how the movie theater will charge you more, and they charge more because they can, because they have rules set that you can't bring in food from the outside. So if you want to enjoy the experience of being at the movies, popcorn, the soda, you're going to have to buy it there. And of course, that means you're going to pay more. So let's take a look at our graphic organizer now. Look at that first row. Okay, so we have three different columns. We have rules of mercantilism, we have the colonial reaction, and then we have the British reaction. Let's do this first one together. Colonies had to sell raw materials to England. Let's look at the next column. So the colonists were because, which word would I use to fill in that blank? So the colonial reaction was, the colonists were maybe angry because they had to sell their raw materials to England. And then the British reaction would be, what word would you use? Maybe they were happy. No, of course the British were happy because they couldn't trade with anybody else. All right. Look at the second one. Colonies had to buy manufactured goods from England. Colonies had to buy manufactured goods from England. Do you think that made the colonists happy? So let's look here. The colonists were Okay, think about if you're a colonist and you have to buy all of your manufactured goods from only one place. Are you going to be happy about that, or are you going to be angry about that? Maybe resentful. That could be a good word that you put there. And then the British reaction. The British were, well, of course, the British were pleased because all of that money is coming straight to them. All right. So I want you to take a few moments and complete the rest of this graphic organizer by yourself. Okay, so let's debrief a little bit now. Now that you've completed your graphic organizer, you have a better idea about how the colonists felt and how the British felt. Who benefited the most from mercantilism? Oh, there were probably two people that benefited the most from this system. The English, the mother country, benefited the most because we couldn't trade. The colonies couldn't trade with anybody else. And New England shipbuilders, that might be surprising, but if you think about it, New England shipbuilders, we needed those ships if you were in the colonies and you could only trade between the two places. If you were a shipbuilder, that was a necessity. You needed to have ships in order to take goods from one place to another. So if you were a New England shipbuilder, you probably benefited very well from mercantilism. Let's look at our next question. Who was negatively affected? So who had the most to lose here? Well, it was the colonists. They needed to buy and sell goods, and this caused them to lose money, to lose profit, and to spend more money. Remember, they could only trade with England. They didn't have any choices. A lot like the movie theater, you could only buy your popcorn from the movie theater. You are not allowed to buy it from any place else. That is a good example of how mercantilism works and how it worked during this time. Let's look at the third one. How do you think the colonists might react after years of being forced to obey these laws? How do you think you would react to this? Probably angry. I think I would be probably angry, and you might start smuggling to start selling to other countries. You don't want to start that, but it is a possibility if you really need to make a profit. I mean, you're trying to survive here in the 13 colonies. You're probably going to start thinking of other options to make a profit, to make money, to survive, economically. Eventually, this is going to start a fight, and we will begin to, in our next lessons, look at what happens with this response. So now that we have debriefed, you've done your graphic organizer, we have an idea about how the British felt and how the colonists felt. I want you to take that information and complete this assignment. This is called Mercantilism Talking Heads. What you're going to do with this assignment is complete the talking heads thought bubbles below. For each bubble, express the thoughts and feelings of the colonial tobacco farmer, the English merchant, and the New England ship owner about mercantilism. So you're going to put yourself in the position of the English merchant, the New England ship owner, and the colonial tobacco farmer. And I want you to come up with some phrases that you think they would say. So how is the English merchant going to feel? What's he going to say? How is the New England ship owner going to feel? What is he going to say? And then how is that colonial tobacco farmer going to feel during all of this? These are the things that you must have for your assignment. I want you to explain how mercantilism impacted their life, positively or negatively. Give me at least 2 complete sentences per thought bubble. I want you to write it in the first person. Use I statements, okay? Because this is you putting yourself in the position of these people at that time. So I want you to say I and then fill in the rest of that. And then make sure that it's historically accurate and that you use the information from your graphic organizer. So you should have created your graphic organizer on your paper. Just make sure that you refer to that to complete your assignment. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you learned a little bit about mercantilism as we are examining the ESP causes of the American Revolution. And I hope that maybe the next time you go to the movies, you think about how mercantilism works. I'm Monica Brown, and I teach 8th grade social studies and history at Key Middle School. Thank you.